Most players know that football is a contact sport, and some plays are just hard to avoid. You want to win the game at all costs, but at the same time, you want to keep everyone safe in the process. This is the mindset of most players who come and go from the league, but not everyone. There will always be players who don't care what the safest move is. They want to hit. Regardless of the rules and the situation, it's time to lay the boom however they can with the most pain possible. Here is our list of some of the dirtiest players in NFL history, some of whom are still on current NFL rosters. Number 8. Mac Jones. Mac Jones hasn't been in the league for long, so most people wouldn't necessarily say he is a dirty player. But he's had enough tape on the field to make our list. Jones has been seen multiple times twisting the ankles of fallen players, making questionable blocks, and even kicking a player in a very unfavorable spot while sliding to the ground after a QB run. There haven't been any outright dirty plays, and Jones has gotten away with some of his acts being questionable. But if he keeps up his antics, he might start to earn himself a reputation that could be hard to shake off. Number 7. Heinz Ward. Heinz Ward is an interesting name that you wouldn't necessarily think you would see on this list. He's a wide receiver. How dirty could you be? Well, the tape doesn't lie. There is a fine line between being clean, playing hard, and being dirty. And Heinz really likes to keep his toes right on that line. Some players said that he would only hit you if you weren't looking, but maybe that means he was always making great blocks. The NFL had to implement a new rule, nicknamed the Heinz Ward rule, which stopped receivers from leading with their helmets to make a block. Just to be clear, this doesn't make Heinz Ward a 100% dirty player. It's all about perspective. Steelers fans would tell you he's a workhorse, and he is just giving his all every play. If you're on the other side of that fence, you'd say he takes cheap shots and is unnecessarily violent. His own peers even voted him as the dirtiest player in the league in 2009. Despite your opinions, it's hard to watch some of the blocks, hits, and moves Heinz Ward has put on the opposition and not at least question his motives. Number 6. Brian Dawkins. Brian Dawkins was a scary man. Not scarier than TJ on the strings trying to play, but he is quite formidable. His pregame rituals and speeches to himself are enough to make you want to run through a brick wall. He was a very nice person and a great teammate. Some people would argue that that's why he isn't necessarily a dirty player. But don't be fooled. Dawkins didn't care about anything other than instilling fear in his opponents. His bone-crushing hits came from all over the field, and he even ended Giants wide receiver Ike Hilliard's season after a brutal hit near the end zone. Hilliard himself came out and said that the hit was clean and he doesn't blame Dawkins for his injury, but the league still fined the Eagles safety $50,000 for the helmet-to-helmet contact. A good chunk of fans claim Dawkins is a very dirty player, and some of his plays might speak for themselves. Number 5. James Harrison. If you were part of the Steelers' hard-nosed defense at any point in your career, you might have played a little dirty. Sometimes, players might not even try to take a cheap shot. A lot of these athletes are so powerful that they may lose control and not understand their full power. This might be the case with linebacker James Harrison. He was such a strong anchor on the Steelers' defense, and he would do whatever it took to get the ball carrier down. And his records showed that with almost $100,000 worth of total fines from the league over his career. Whether it's late hits on the quarterback, dealing out concussions to wide receivers, or his many unnecessary roughness calls, Harrison prides himself on being a violent force. Just hopefully it's not too violent. Number 4. Bill Romanowski. Bill Romanowski is an older player who was in the league from the late 80s to the early 2000s, but he has been hard to forget. The list of Romanowski's vices makes it pretty hard to defend. He might have the biggest reputation as a dirty player, especially among the group of men he played against or with. Yes, that's right, even his own teammates weren't safe. Romanowski is infamous for punching his own teammate, and it was such a bad injury that the backup tight end was forced to retire. There have been stories of Bill spitting on people, throwing more punches than Mike Tyson, and even breaking opponents' jaws in preseason games. Romanowski didn't care what anyone thought, and despite the multiple occurrences of dirty play, they never seemed to stop. There was even a rumor that Romanowski was at the bottom of a scrum during a game and bit into the arm of a player. There was no limit for this man, and it showed. How long do you think a player like this would last in today's game? Number 3. Dominic Sue. Our first player to make the podium, Dominic Sue, had a prolific collegiate career. He was an absolute unstoppable force on the Nebraska Huskers D-line and was almost impossible to block. You might remember him for using Colt McCoy as a ragdoll against Texas in the 2009 Big 12 championship. He should have been raising a trophy at the end of the game if the ref's inability to call the game correctly didn't get in the way, but we won't get into that. Sue went on to be drafted by the Lions, and while he was still a force to be reckoned with, he started to get involved in some situations. The first came on a very big stage, the Thanksgiving Day game. On national television, Sue would bash an offensive lineman's head into the ground before stomping on him on the way up. A few groin kicks later, some scuffles, and even a stomp on the great Aaron Rodgers led to Sue gaining quite a reputation around the league. Number 2. Richie Incognito. The silver medal winner could strongly argue for number 1 on our list. Richie Incognito is not a very popular guy. When you make it your business to be as cruel as possible to your opponents and even your own teammates, guys aren't really lining up to be your best friend. Incognito is known for all the wrong reasons, not embracing the game's physicality, but actually wanting to hurt people and looking for ways to cause as much pain as possible. The game itself is dangerous enough without someone like that on the field, and Richie's dirty antics extended beyond the actual game field and the physical side. A story was released in 2013 of Incognito bullying his teammate Jonathan Martin. Bullying might even be putting it lightly. Incognito sent threatening voicemails to Martin, threatening his family, and said he would kill Martin himself. He used racial and sexual slurs against his teammate and defended it all by saying, "It's a joke." Martin eventually stopped showing up for practice, showing the damage it was doing to his mental health. Adding this saga to his on-field actions places Richie Incognito on the list of unliked and dirty players. And number 1. Vontaze Burfict. Number 1 on our list probably doesn't surprise you. What hasn't Vontaze Burfict been involved with? Burfict is near the top of everyone's list of dirty players because of how brutal he plays and how little he cares. You could go back to his high school days to find cheap shots all over the field, sometimes on his own teammates. Ask Giovanni Bernard and his knee about that. Funny enough, both plays that might have put Burfict at the top of this list come from games against the Steelers. His hit on Antonio Brown across the middle might have seriously had long-term effects on Brown's health and CTE levels, while his aggression towards Big Ben and aggravating his already injured shoulder left no room for his potential fans to defend him. Would the NFL be better off without these players? I don't think anyone would say that. The NFL is a very physical game, and it can be hard to try and maintain 100% safety. But our list showed some players aren't really worried about that. Does it make football more entertaining, or should dirty players be hit with punishments that will stop things like this from happening again? Let us know what you think in the comments. Subscribe, hit the bell to stay caught up, and drop a like if you want to see more NFL content going forward.